you don't acknowledge it, you're not gonna be able to change it, right? So what does society tell us about these two black men in these pictures specifically?
Emotionless, see hard, good faces.
What else?
Criminals.
Criminals? Yes, this, media definitely wants us to see them as criminals, right? That's why they show this picture. Who knows who this young guy is on the bottom? Come on, somebody.
Scared.
Definitely scared. Tamir Rice? What else? What does media and society want us to think of these men? They're dangerous. Aggressive, thugs. That's what society and media wants us to think about them, right? That's why they're using these pictures in the media to talk about kids. This is also what our kids see. Our young black men and black girls that we're working with, this is also what they see in society and media. It's trying to tell them about themselves. So it's really important to acknowledge when we're having conversations with them that this is some of what's being put into their minds about themselves. Now that's another hard conversation, right? That's why it's important to have them. So here, and I'll give some full disclosure, does anybody recognize who this young man is on top? Jenny?
One of your boys.
It is. This is my oldest son. Did he do something stupid? Yes. Is that him? Angry, violent, dangerous criminal? No, he smoked a joint. And it resulted in a mugshot. He's not an angry, violent, dangerous criminal. He's a big, huge teddy bear that, he's a big, huge teddy bear. Dan, do you remember him?
Yep.
When he was 15? Like that, but that's what society wants us to believe, right? So here's how I see him. Graduating high school, big old smile on his face, happy as can be. Greatest big brother any of my kids could ever ask for. But Tamir Rice, how come media didn't show a lot of these pictures of him? It makes him look innocent. My son would be mad if I called him cute or sweet, but isn't that picture cute of him? Come on. He does not want me to call him cute, but successful? What's that?
It's dehumanizing if you don't put any of these innocent pictures.
Ah.
If you don't see someone as human, you can judge them more easily.
Aha! Dehumanizing. Has anybody ever heard that? So a lot of times, we use words that dehumanize people because that makes us, in the terms of, it makes us feel better about ourselves when we want to think badly about them, right? So if we call somebody, and here's, you guys want to, if I'll be really transparent, illegal alien just is one of the terms that'll grind my gears really quickly. It's a term that's used to dehumanize people, so we feel better when we are saying mean things about them or trying to exclude them or trying to make things okay that's happening to them. Humans can't do illegal, or they can't be legal or illegal. That's an act. So it's a word that has been somewhere created to be able to feel better about ourselves when we're calling them that, or to feel better about society when that happens. Absolutely. This is a dehumanizing. This one is. So, really think back. You're working with Troy, young guy here, so when he moved in with us, he was 15. And he comes to you as you're his foster care worker, adoption worker, you work with him at St. John's, whatever capacity you might have worked with him. And he comes to you and he was like, man, I can't believe how these police treated me when I was just walking across the park. What do you say? You have a relationship with him, you've been working with him for a while. What do you say to him? What's a reply that you can use and start having a conversation with him about that? Because they can ask that, right? We want them to. We want to be a safe place for them to have conversations. We don't want them to hold that in.
How did it make you feel?
How did that make you feel?
Yeah, just asking about their experience, so you can hear exactly what happened and see like how they interpreted everything.
Mm-hmm. How do they interpret it? How do they interpret the experience? Might not be the same as what they told their foster parent and then the foster parent told you, or if there was a police report, might not be the same as what the police report made it look like it was. What else? How can we make him feel safe? How do we make him feel safe and empower him to be brave to have this conversation? Can you imagine there's any hurt or pain in that question? Right? Should we acknowledge that hurt and pain?
Validate how he feels.
Validate how he feels. What else? We have to have these conversations with our kids, and we have to be willing to help our foster parents and adoptive parents that our kids are living with have these conversations, especially if they don't look like their children. Because these experiences happen to them out in the world. And if they're living in their little white umbrella in their foster home, they're not going to be prepared for what happens when they go outside of that white umbrella. So we have to help our foster parents have these conversations and our adoptive parents so they can have them with our kids. So what else do we say to him?
I hear you.
I hear you. What else? I can't believe that police officer chased me. All I had was a joint. What don't we say?
You knew it was wrong, or like blame him for like, well, you shouldn't have done that.
You shouldn't have run.
Yeah.
That's not gonna help him, right? It's not gonna help him to say, well, you shouldn't have run from the police officer. That's not gonna help him.
I think on the opposite side, you don't want to say like, oh, F the police, like invalidate, and because then you could get yourself in further trouble in the future. Because in reality, like, not being compliant with a police officer as a black man will get you in trouble with the society.
Definitely. What else? What don't we say to him? There's a lot of things we don't want to say to him, right? We want to make sure that he feels valued and heard, and that we're not blaming it on him. What about microaggressions? Has anybody ever heard of these? What are microaggressions? So I've heard this one right here in foster homes more than once. What do you do if you hear this microaggression in a foster home? Are you willing to say something and talk about it? I don't see color. We're colorblind in our home. Are you willing to have a conversation with them about it? Okay, let me back up. What's the detriment that can happen to a child if their parent, their foster parent, adoptive parent, whoever's working with them, and they're a white parent and a black child, says to them and says in the home and sets the tone in the home, we don't see color.
I don't see you.
I don't see you. So is it important for us working with the families to be willing to have a conversation with them when we hear it?
I think it's really important too, because especially if they're younger, or I mean, really any age, other kids point it out. I have 2 biracial children in a single parent household, so I have a little bit more in tune, or I try to be. So I read a book, Why Doesn't Anybody Else Look Like Me? And it really speaks to other kids, I mean, as young as like preschool, when they're starting to able to verbalize, like, oh, you have a funny nose, or your skin is so much darker than mine. So then if they're living in a home where they're like, we're all equal, like there's no color, then they get really confused and even more self-conscious when other kids are saying that, and they're like, but you don't see me different, and all these kids do. So it's important to point that out, like, we are different, but that's okay, and you're special because of it.
So why is this a microaggression?
Well, you're not preparing that child for life outside of your home. So you're doing a disservice to that child.
And, I'm sorry, what's your name? Brooke? Brooke said a word earlier that connects to microaggressions really well. Microaggressions are dehumanizing, right? So what do we say to a foster parent? Go ahead. You came to my home and you brought Troy out to my home when he was 15 years old. And I was like, oh, hi. And you asked me a question about how we're gonna help him feel culturally connected, right? Is that still a question on a lot of the reports? How are you gonna help him feel culturally connected? And I say, oh, we don't see color in our home. We're colorblind. What are you gonna say? We have to address this. We can't this can't be one of those things that you're like, okay, have a good day, see you next week, next month. What do you say?
I don't wanna like overtake the thing, but
Oh,
I think the first thing I do when someone says comments like that is to ask what their intent was,
Mhm.
because you don't want to just assume their intent. And a lot of microaggressions, they think that they have good intentions.
Uh-huh.
So if you let them explain it, and then you can kind of go from there and say, well, actually, this is what I've learned from my experiences. What do you think about that? And try to make it more two-sided rather than you calling them out
Yes.
and they feel attacked.
Definitely, when I ask them, can you help me understand that statement? Can you help me understand what you mean by that statement? So giving them the chance to explain their statement first before if you have to correct it. What else? I've just said this to you as you came into my home. I don't see color. We're colorblind. What are you gonna say to me? You have to say something, guys. What are you gonna say to me?
I mean, say, how do you think a statement like that may make Troy feel?
How do you think a statement like that might make Troy, this kid, feel? And then I say, well, I mean, it'll make him feel good. We don't see color. Everyone's equal in our home.
Do you feel like from Troy's experience, he would see things in the same way? Does he feel like everyone's gonna be treated equally here? Do you think his past has maybe led to his thoughts on what's going on here? Could this be difficult for him because you're a white mom?
Mm-hmm.
So you may be feeling really comfortable in this, Troy might not be.
And it's important to acknowledge the differences in people. Embrace the differences. Colorblind isn't a thing. It's not real. We see color. Unless you're like legitimate diagnosed colorblind, and even then you can still see race. Because you can't see reds and pinks and greens. You can still see race if you're, I don't know what the correct way to say legitimate colorblind, like
colored.
vision colorblind. So you can't really be colorblind. That's a microaggression. And that's something we have to be willing to address with clients when we're working with them, and by clients in this case, talking about foster parents and adoptive parents that we're working with, right? So we have to be willing to address that with them and have that conversation. So this is a conversation that can maybe start with coworkers at work. You can maybe practice having that conversation, because it's easier to go have it with foster parents if you practice having it with coworkers at work, right? Makes it a little bit easier to have it with those foster parents. But who would agree that you're going to, at some point, and maybe excluding this group here, although you guys work with foster parents too, right? So including this group here, who would agree that you will or you have heard that from a foster parent at some point in your experience working in foster care? Come on, I know you've heard it. I've heard it way too many times for you to not have heard it working with them. You've heard it, right? Here's some more. What are you? What does that mean? Our kids hear this. These are all ones that I've heard, my kids have heard. They hear this. So how do we have conversations with them about it? How do you think it makes them feel? My 15-year-old daughter, you're smart for a black girl. She hears that all the time. And she's quite full of spunk and sass. And often replies, "What do you mean?" Of course I am. Well, that's a dehumanizing statement, right? Do you think our kids have heard it? You think our kids may have heard it in their home? You think our kids might have overheard their foster parent or adoptive parent saying it to one of their friends? We have to be willing to have conversations with them about this. Why do you sound white? What does that mean? What does that microaggression mean? What is somebody trying to get at by saying that microaggression?
They're using proper grammar. Not using.
As if white is the only race that can speak proper grammar. I'm not racist, but. Well, if you say that, probably an indication to starting it, right? Are you even legal? We talked about the dehumanizing of that statement. People aren't legal or illegal. Actions are. What are some other microaggressions that our kids might be hearing that we have to talk to them about?
You're gonna be really good in sports,
You're gonna be really good in sports. Why?
obviously, and all that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Why can't they be something else? Why can't they be an engineer? Right? What else? Has anybody ever seen or heard someone asking a little black girl, can they touch their hair? What? Now my 15-year-old, again, full of spunk and sass, someone at the grocery, mind you, she's 15, she's 5'10", taller than me, like walking with me in the grocery store. Someone comes up and like, "Oh, can I touch your hair?" She was like, "Do you want to touch my mom's hair first?" I feel like that statement spoke very loudly to that person. I think they got the point really easily. That might not work for everybody, but for her, it worked in the reply. But how do we help parents? And I have to hope that parents have asked you this. What do they say when someone says that? Because I promise you, if you have a white mom raising a young black girl, someone's gonna say that to her. I promise.
No.
No, leave it at that, no. But why not? Why shouldn't I let them touch her hair?
Shouldn't have to explain. I
Shouldn't.
think it's crazy how many people just don't even ask. Like, I'll be at restaurants eating with my kids and they're just coming up touching their hair. I'm like, excuse, like, did you wash your hands? Like, what? And just interrupting like a family thing. It's crazy.
So if I'm a foster mom asking you these questions, and I say, what do I say? What do I reply? How do I talk to her about it? How do I talk to her about it? How do you think it makes a little girl feel, a 5-year-old? It can't be comfortable. So how do I talk to her about it? And then what's the reply you give in public? Guys, help me, I'm a foster mom, I don't know what to say.
Empower her, teach her about boundaries, and tell her that it's okay to say no. She doesn't have to give the reason either.
Yeah, it's okay to say no and not give a reason why they can't touch her hair. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say, everyone deserves to have personal boundaries,